Hey, hey, think it's live. What's up, horse owners and trainers? I'm really excited about today's training because I'm going to be teaching you about the three pillars you need to understand in order to work your horse at liberty and get the relationship you want. So I'm just going to check here, check in the comments and check and see, make sure that everybody can hear me. If you could just go in the comments, let me know that you hear me, that you see me. Life is good. Or I'm just checking over here on my other screen. Looks like I've got about 4 people right now that have jumped on. So last week I touched on motivation and psychology of animal training. This week I'm going to talk about the three main pillars needed and how it all fits together with which is going to help you identify the exact steps that you need to teach your horse to stay with you at liberty. So, for those watching and brand new to the group, let me know in the comments if you're watching this live or if you're watching this after the fact. Okay, Andy says, hear and see you. Good. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Um, and let me know if you're excited to be here and if you're watching this live. So, here at Everyday Horsemanship, I teach people how to get their horses from zero to liberty in 12 weeks or less. And in my business, I have I'm sorry, 5 horses that I actively, well, you could say 4 1/4. I have Jake, he's a mini Shetland, but 5 horses that I actively work with at Liberty. If you don't count the 2 additional horses that my husband works with at Liberty, horses of all different breeding, including Mustangs, Appaloosas, a paint horse, and North Dakota Badlands horses, and more. So I'm using all of the strategies that I'm going to be breaking down for you today. So, and my clients are absolutely crushing it too within my program. I have multiple clients even this past week who are doing liberty with their horses and advancing their liberty into large arenas. I think this week, even Tiffany Green, she posted some Liberty Circle in the big arena in the group this week. But back here a few months ago, she got her first Liberty Circle in just 6 weeks, and so that was pretty exciting for her. I think that first Liberty Circle, good, Toby. Thanks, Toby's live. That first Liberty Circle is pretty exciting. And then from there, it's just advancing everything and moving forward. So Liberty is a journey. But so what I do with Liberty Horsemanship really works. It really does. And so we're going to flesh out some of those strategies today with you. So uh, comment below again. Let me know if you're live, and then really quick, share with me in the comments. Are you currently doing Liberty with your horse, or are you trying to figure out where to start your Liberty training? So I hear that from a lot of people that they don't know where to start, and so just let me know in the comments whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this in the replay. Are you currently doing Liberty with your horse, or are you trying to figure out where to start? Because I can certainly help you with either one of those. So when I first started Liberty training, I was just trying to navigate where to start, how to do it. And like most people, Andy, figuring out how to start. Okay, good. Like most people, I was really hyper focused on the techniques needed, as though there was this magic wand of some sort to get me there. And fast forward today, I've learned really so much more. And I'm sharing all of that with you, everything that I've learned from just all of my studies and my practicing. And just the experience, the number of horses that I've worked with and have added Liberty to it. I used to add Liberty with all of my training horses and doing that even before I really knew what I was doing completely entirely. But now adding that aspect, performance Liberty, and just getting that control that I need to have to keep my horses at liberty and getting them willingly staying with me at liberty is just so much different today. And I've learned so much more. So So I'm just sharing all of that with you, and you're going to be able to take those principles that I'm going to lay out for you today and implement it in your own, personally with your horse and get the results that you want. But I'm not going to kid you. It does take work and it takes consistency in work. So if you're telling me that you know if you're going to only work your horse 1 2 days a week, it's going to be challenging for your horse to get to liberty. It's not to say that you can't, it's just going to take you a long time. And then if you don't, so you throw that in there. If you knew the rules, if you knew all of the rules with liberty and you said, I'm only going to work my horse 2 days a week, you probably could get there at some point. But now let's just say you only work your horse 1 to 2 days a week. You really don't know where to start, what to do. You don't understand the concept of desired versus undesired behavior, or black or white behavior, and getting rid of those shades of gray. And you're still trying to figure all of that out. It's going to be really hard for you to get there if you can only work your horse 1 to 2 days a week. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can say, hey, I'm going to make a commitment of working my horse 6 to 12 weeks and put the time into that and really dive into getting what I want out of my horse, because then I can back off and maybe get 1 to 2 days a week because I know the rules. I've been taught this and I've taught my horse these rules, and and this, we're able to communicate and we're both on the same page. And then it becomes a much different story. So just, giving up some of that short term for that long term. But so anyway, I'm going to be diving into this, but I want to point out that the art and science of Liberty horse training is not just focusing on the technique alone. Okay. So not just focusing on the technique. And what do I mean by technique? That means pivoting the hindquarters, backing a horse up, or drawing a horse to you, all those step-by-step techniques. Yes, they are important to figure it out, to understand those. All of those are just smaller approximations that build into bigger pieces, right? So when we ask a horse to pivot the hindquarters, it's because it's a smaller approximation to be able to get to that liberty circle. So, but I find that I think that there's a lot of people out there that think that there's this magic wand that you're going to when without doing a lot of effort or a lot of work, that just getting to liberty and then having this beautiful relationship. And the relationship can be beautiful, but there's not one magic exercise that you're going to be able to do to get your horse at liberty. There's multiple exercises that lead you to that liberty and liberty circle. And it's breaking it down into smaller pieces. So you'll need to nurture the relationship with your horse just as you would nurture the relationship with your children or your spouse. There's times you'll need boundaries. There's there's times you need to reward your horse, and there's times you need to correct your horse. The art of getting liberty with your horse is setting expectations and goals. And I'm going to share with you some of these strategies around the 3 pillars that I focus on with my horse. So, are you ready to hear what those 3 pillars are? Comment below if you're ready to hear what the 3 pillars are when it comes to keeping my horses at liberty. And I'm just going to take a quick drink here while I wait for you guys to comment and clear my throat. I do have some allergies, and yay, Toby's ready. Okay. Gotta keep that little bit of dryness here as I'm talking. I'm doing a lot of talking today. I had a lot of lessons I've given today. So so here I am. But all right. So pretty much everything I do with my horses falls into one of these 3 categories. And these pillars are: number 1, communication. We've all heard that, communication. I'm going to dive in a little deeper into these, but communication. Number 2 is motivation. Motivation. And number 3 is connection. Tell me if any of these words are new to you. I have a feeling they're not new to you as far as hearing them. Good. Randy Jane is ready. All right. Awesome. Toby Lynn's ready. Andy's ready. Good. So the 3 pillars, communication, motivation, and connection. That is a nice, less scientific way of me saying antecedents, behavior, consequence. So the scientific term is antecedent. Good. We got more people joining in. Ready. Is it more? I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to pronounce your name. Mori. I love the spelling. Cannot pronounce it. I'm sorry. My apologies. But anyway, so antecedents, behavior, consequence. So antecedent is your communication. Behavior is the connection. You're either connected or you're not. Motivation is the consequence. So that's really so it's a less scientific way of putting it. But communication, you can put connection in the middle of motivation. But I think in terms of today, we're going to do it as communication, motivation, and connection, because I think it's going to help you to understand it a little bit better in what I'm talking about. So, I've been giving this information to my clients within my Liberty Experience program, and I wanted to put some of these strategies into the forefront that I use to get horses to work at Liberty with me. And the whole idea of Liberty training is to nurture and establish that connection. And I thought I'd I'd give a little bit of a teaser first for my full program that's officially launching next week before I dive in deeper into these 3 pillars. But I've heard what you've been telling me, and I've built the system that not only encompasses the virtual coaching capabilities, live virtual coaching capabilities using a Pivo, and for those folks that they can't do the Pivo, there's also the traditional through Zoom and whatnot. But it also provides my clients with, my program will provide my clients with weekly feedback, including video instruction that they can watch videos, group lessons such as this. This is um, basically a group lesson, that's something that I might do in my program. Somebody that signs up for my 12-week program. And accountability, there's that accountability piece, because I know it's all too easy to say, hey, it's 30 degrees outside and a little windy. I don't have an indoor. I don't want to go outside. But knowing that somebody's there keeping you accountable is very, very helpful. And then all of the science that's broken down into manageable pieces to help you as you progress into that step-by-step system to get you from 0 to Liberty in 12 weeks or less. And when I say 12 weeks or less, uh, again, I've had clients that 6 weeks, 7 weeks get their first Liberty Circle, and the 12-week progression is just because there's advancements in there. It doesn't just stop at that Liberty Circle. So, but what I really like about this model is that if you've experienced an online video library before, there's nothing there to hold you accountable to actually go out and practice what you've learned. And there's no one there to actually tell you if you're doing it right. My program covers all of that and then some. So it's like it's like having that online program on steroids, because you do have me looking over and telling you. The only difference is that I can't reach out and work with your horse and tell you what I'm feeling with your horse, but I can tell you what I'm seeing with your horse, and that makes it really helps things a lot. So not only do I teach you the step-by-step techniques, remember we talked about those techniques. I do teach those step-by-step, those approximations, but I also teach you the science and help you understand how to know whether you're doing it right or not, even when I'm not there. So, and how to know if your horse is doing it right or not, even when I'm not there. So, helping to give you the tools to uh, to understand and to know and to be able to take this and fly with it. So it's more than just a set of techniques and doing it. So I find that, some people want to hustle through in the beginning just to get the liberty part, but they discover that if the earlier skills aren't taught correctly, they won't achieve their liberty goals, right? It's that simple, and that's why I've built this way of to help you achieve the results you want, which is the beautiful thing in my program. So let's dive into the three pillars you need to understand in order to achieve liberty with your horse. And that first pillar is communication, right? So communication is how we speak with our horse, but most people don't really understand all the ways that they can communicate with their horse because they don't understand that prey animals observe everything. So, um, that means that the tone of your voice and the verbal cues that you use, your emotions and how you feel, your energy, your tactile cues, where you place your feet, and how you move the parts of your body. Each of those areas can be at varying levels depending on the situation of and your horse, depending on your horse. Uh, for example, I was working with some ladies earlier today in person, so they were local to my area, uh, and I was, and this isn't anything new, but talking about where you point your toe. You want to point your toe at the body part that you want to have move. So if I want the hindquarters to pivot over, I'm going to step my foot forward, so the foot that's on the outside. So if I'm facing the horse and I want the hindquarters to shift away and I'm on the horse's left side, but it's my right, as I'm facing the horse, I'm going to step towards with my right foot and point my toe at the hindquarters, but I'm also going to focus my eyes there. That's exactly so where my focus is and where my foot is, where my energy is, all of that is helping my horse to understand what I want. And I'm sequencing all of these pieces. So all of the pieces that I mentioned have varying levels. So to one degree, when I put my foot forward and my body leans in, I might do it with a ton of energy if I feel like the horse is not listening to me. And and then something else, like say if I have a dressage whip in my hands, for example, I might have that a little quieter because I want the horse to be listening more to my body language and to the energy that I'm sending out there. So everything you do communicates something to your horse. So here's another example, just on the opposite end. If I pull my cell phone out while I'm working with my horses, they're going to sense number one, my energy isn't there. I'm not paying attention to them. And they will begin to wander off because I'm essentially communicating to them that I'm not focused on them. And they know that I'm not present with them. It happens every single time. And I don't tend to pull my cell phone out, but I have a mother that's on hospice. And so I do have other demands in my life and I have to take phone calls sometimes or respond to text messages at times that are around my mother and so I might be working with my horse and I have to check that and instantly they know if I am not present because the rest of my body language is saying I'm not there, so they're moving on. So if I place my stick up, for example, my dressage whip, and I'm working with a horse, and I place my stick up in their face accidentally, I'm likely not opening and inviting for them to come. So I need to stay consistent in my body language and how I'm asking and thinking forward with, am I inviting them to come in? I was working with a client one time, uh, and I'm pretty sure I videoed her, but I remember going back and watching it, or maybe it was because I was watching her at the time. But whatever the case is, I told her, "You're drawing your horse to you. It's important to draw your horse to you, but your stick was up in his face." And so while you're trying to accomplish something, at the same time, you're telling it something else. And so we have to be very mindful about not only sequencing our behavior every single time, but where our body language is and what we're telling it. So if my body angle is facing away from my horse, if I turn away from my horse, uh, I might be trying to draw my horse to me, to my shoulder, uh, but maybe my horse, maybe if that's not what I'm doing, maybe my horse might say, okay, I'm going to go that way because you're leaving me. So I have to be careful about what I'm doing and what my purpose is. In the instance of pivoting the hindquarters, thinking in terms of step forward with my toe, focusing on my eyes on the hindquarters, and really asking with that energy and focusing on it. And I'm going to do that every single time the same way so that I can do it not only with the lead rope on first, but I want to do it without the lead rope. And so that was something that I was working on with my clients earlier today of just introducing that piece so that we can have more control when we go at liberty. But so I mean, so all of this has to do with communication, and communication is important. Communication is what tells your horse what to do and how to do it. Communication helps your horse to learn. And that's why we have to break things down into those smaller skills and pieces because we need to help our horses learn and we need to communicate it consistently. And sequencing our communication from quiet to louder is needed. Now, if I have a super reactive horse, I'm going to keep my communication quieter. There's no reason for me to increase uh my communication or to get louder in my communication. And so one of the horses I was working with today was a little more reactive to the cues, and I wanted to teach the horse that there's no reason to be reactive to my communication, just to be consistent. So I had to stay consistent and keep asking over and over and over without getting louder. I only needed to get louder if the horse didn't move forward, which at first the horse didn't move forward because he didn't understand what I was asking for. But when he started to understand what I was asking for, he became a little more reactive about coming forward and building that draw. And so I had to just keep asking with consistent body language, without getting louder, without getting frustrated, without anything, but keeping calm. And that calmness would build confidence in the horse to find the right answer, and through that continual reinforcement, then the horse started producing the correct answer multiple times. So again, sequencing our communication, getting louder only as we need to get louder, but not right away, right? We don't want to just jump to getting louder with our communication. We want to give the horse a chance to respond, especially if this is a new exercise and the horse doesn't understand. Then we're going to give them even more of a chance to respond versus a horse that does understand and just says, I don't need to do this today. I don't want to do this today. Can we have a discussion about this? Can we drink tea before we do this? That was the other horse that I worked with today in the same arena. They were two completely opposite horses, and this one was like, "Can we have a discussion about it before I come drawing up?" And so my communication had to get louder a lot faster, right? So I started off quiet, and then we get loud right away because we need to build that leadership, and we need to build that respect and have that clear, consistent communication right away. So be clear in our communication, which helps the horse to understand what we want. Over time, we can fade away certain cues so that we can get lighter in our ask and get to the point where our ask is less noticeable. But at first, we need to exaggerate our communication. So, for example, and I talked about this even today with my clients that I was in front of, is pivoting the hindquarters towards. at first we teach our horses by reaching over and having them bring the hindquarters towards us because they've already been taught how to push the hindquarters away from us. So now we can just use that same cue and just transfer it to being on the other side. So it helps the horse to understand it a little better. But over time, I want to get to a point where I'm not just reaching over automatically, right? And asking my horse to come over. I want to add a lighter cue so I can fade away the the dressage whip coming to the other side of the horse. So maybe I just put my hand up and then snap my fingers, and then the horse targets my hand with the hip. So there's multiple different ways of how you can do that, or just shift my body weight away. The angles of my body mean something. So by pulling my body away, that might be enough, and just kind of bringing my hand up might be enough to draw the hip towards me without me having to put my dressage whip over there. So again, our goal is always to fade away those louder cues and get quieter with those cues. So, but lack of clear, consistent communication is one of the biggest mistakes I see from people when they are working with their horses, and the horse is often confused when that happens, and people just don't know what or how they're supposed to ask those questions with their horse sometimes, and how they're supposed to explain to their horse what they want. And so think about, again, small approximations, and think about don't ask for too much, and think about being clear and consistent. But that is also where I dig into the tools in my toolbox to help my horses to understand. There are 6 primary ways in which we can help teach horses what we want from our communication or from our ask. They do help your horse understand what you want. I don't have time to go through all 6 of those ways right now, but when we're done, if you want to know about the 6 ways or the 6 primary operant conditioning techniques that we use to help our horses learn what we want at Liberty, or how to learn what we want at Liberty, just type 6 in the chat here in the comments. And then whether you're watching it live or whether you're doing it after the fact, and then when we're done here, I'll regroup. I have a lesson after this I have to give, but then I'll reach out to you later on here tonight and kind of show what those processes are, and you can take a look at. Good, Toby's got 6. Good. You can. I'm going to show you and just try to help you understand. You can take a look at what you're currently doing with your horse in terms of helping them to understand what you want, and then we can look at how your horse is responding now, and how I can help you with that, how we can better have your horse understand what you want. Good. Randy Jane said 6. So we'll also be touching on some of this in the group each week as we move forward, but yeah, if you want to get those now, Julie saying 6, good. So again, if you're watching this afterwards, go ahead and type 6, and I will get that information to you. And it'll be a little bit later, or it might be tomorrow at the very latest for me to get that to you. Just because again, I have a lesson after this, just a few things that I got to catch up on. It's been a pretty hectic day, but so we're we're on a good roll here, but drop any question you have in the comments, by the way, while I'm doing this, and I'll try to get to them before we're done here. I'll try to answer them as we go. But just if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. And if you're watching this afterwards, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and just post a question, and then I'll just try to get to you after that. But anyway, so I'm going to take a quick drink here, and then we'll talk about the second pillar. Okay. So the second pillar, as I talked about, is motivation. And technically, scientifically, if we look at it, it's really the last piece to it. So we have antecedent, which is communication. Behavior is whether we're connected or not connected. And then motivation is the consequences, is what it's called. Consequences are neither good nor bad. They are just something that happens as a result of behavior. And so that's why we call it motivation, because really it's about motivating. So your horse likely won't do something if there's no motivation to do it, quite simply. So We have to understand these motivators in order to understand how to use them. Horses are generally motivated by four things: safety first, then sexual drives, and depending on the horse, right? A stallion's going to have more motivation and sexual drives than a mare, but a gelding likely isn't going to have those same sexual drives. So keeping that in mind. Third is food and water, and lastly is comfort. So it's in that order. So starting with safety, you want your horse to feel safe. And so that's going to help motivate your horse because when you're working with them, if your horse doesn't feel safe in that moment, and I just want you to think about this, okay? If your horse doesn't feel safe, there isn't any number of treats or rubs and scrubs that you can give it if it's not feeling safe in its environment, if it doesn't feel confidence in you. So there's a lot of things, and so it's funny because I just brought this up earlier today, talking about look around you when you go to an expo. So coming up here soon, I'm out of Wisconsin. We have one of the largest expos in the country, and that's Midwest Horse Fair in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'll be heading to that in a couple weeks, and off to Minnesota Horse Fair. But if you look around when you go to these expos, and you can see a lot of horses that feel unsafe. They're not paying attention to their owners. They're pushing around. They're moving around. Funny story is I was driving back, and I happened to chat today, and I was checking my email. I'm on the Warwick Schiller email list, and guess what comes up? This exact subject about safety and looking around at expos, and I thought, "Yep, nailed it." Not only did I just bring that up today, but Warwick Schiller sent out an email today talking about that same concept. And your horse has to feel safe with you when you're working with them. So when they don't feel safe, then you're going to have a hard time getting them to do anything. So, again, just keeping your energy down, helping to reduce that anxiety, all of those things are going to help you to help your horse. And so I have one of my Mustangs. She is one of those that if she is in a different location and she feels unsafe at that moment, I have to bring her back down from that anxiety because there's no amount of treat rewards or using negative reinforcement, release of pressure, or moving her feet or anything that's going to get her, back to, um, back to where we are when we're at home, right? So when she first started off, actually at home, she was like that. She didn't even want to take a treat when she felt there was something going on in the area moving around. Her head was up, she was looking the other way. And so I had to work with her and build her attention and her focus. And so that's why one of the first exercises I do with my horses is an exercise to gain attention and focus and build relaxation. So, because if my horse isn't focused on me, and I don't have their attention, they aren't going to trust me, they aren't going to see me as a leader, and I'm not going to be able to get them relaxed like I need to be able to do the things that we do. So think about it when horses lay down. They often have a sentinel watching over them, right? They need to know that you see, so you have to be their sentinel, and they have to know that you see what they see, and if they're focused on something else, that you are present and you are aware that they are focused on something other than you. And if they don't feel safe, there's no way that they're going to do those things that you're going to be asking them to do at liberty, right? So make sure you're present and you're aware. How many times I see somebody is standing there with their horse and the horse is looking off in the other direction, and the person might be talking to their friend and not really paying attention to that. So You want, when you are with your horse and you're working with your horse, you want your horse to know that you are aware of what they're paying attention to. So anyway, sexual drives, that's another primary motivator and next in line after safety. And these can be really challenging, which is why stallions typically don't work with mares at liberty, and even some mares will act differently during their cycles. So I don't use sexual drives to motivate the horse to do it, but I know that it is a competing reinforcer or a competing motivator that I need to make sure that all of my systems are in place to make up for those times when sexual drives are taking over, right? So that's why we need to be aware of it, because it can be a competing motivator. So food is the next primary motivator, and we'll use food to reinforce a desired behavior using what's called positive reinforcement. But food can be particularly rewarding for a horse because it taps into their natural desire for food. So that's why it's a primary reinforcer. Horses are especially receptive to training during feeding times, even. So if you time your training when you might have otherwise given your horse grain, don't give your horse grain before you feed your horse, especially if you're using food as a motivator. So food can be a reinforcer during that time, and that can help you get some wins pretty fast, right? And lastly, comfort is the last motivator, and can be in that line of motivation, in that particular line, and it can be divided into two main categories, including physical and mental comfort. So mental comfort is simply, it comes from doing what you can do to reduce your horse's anxiety, right? So it kind of goes up there with that safety piece, but it's through building up what I call an emotional bank account with your horse, which I don't have a lot of time to be able to discuss that today, but building that emotional bank account. And it's really building upon the positivity of your relationship. So the second part was physical comfort, which physical comfort, on the other hand, is generally used in two primary ways. And since horses don't like to move, that they like to conserve their energy as much as possible. I mean, they like to play, they like to socialize, they like that social interaction, and that is more along the lines of mental comfort. But overall, horses, and some breeds more than others, they like to conserve their energy. So, um, when you release pressure and stop a horse from doing a particular maneuver at the right time, you are rewarding your horse through negative reinforcement. So that is motivation. So negative reinforcement. Um, but let's say you had to correct your horse by backing your horse up. That's known as positive punishment, okay? I like to talk about it as being a correction because I think people put a negative connotation to the word punishment. It's not punishment in necessarily in the terms that maybe most people might think, but it's just simply that correction that moves your horse's body in some way, which will motivate the horse in another way by decreasing the chances that you'll see the undesired behavior from your horse. So um, when we provide a reinforcer or a punisher, we call that a consequence, like I said. And the reason it's important for you to understand that concept of consequence is because it's important for you to understand the timing and the delivering of that consequence, regardless of whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. So in the case of if a horse steps, into my space, I'm going to back the horse up. That is a consequence, and that is a punisher. I'm going to, back the horse up to get out of my space. So timing is everything in all of this. If your timing is off, it will be difficult for your horse to connect what he did correctly or incorrectly. You need to deliver the consequence of a behavior immediately after the behavior. After the given behavior, you need to deliver the consequence, whether it's a positive or a negative, right? And with humans, we know that we're going to get a consequence because somebody's going to tell us, like, you go to work, you get a paycheck. That's a consequence, right? Somebody's going to tell us that we know, but horses don't know. And in order to communicate in the way they understand, we have to act on our response. And in that very moment that the behavior happens, good, bad, desired, or undesired. So timing is everything. So go in the comments for me if you would. Go in the comments and let me know if you're getting value out of this, and type the word value if you're getting some valuable information here. And I'm just going to take a quick drink again. So, all right. So the third pillar, good, Toby, you're getting value. That's good. I'm glad because it's so. Let me tell you something. It's so important to understand each of these three pillars to the fullest, because it doesn't matter how many techniques you learn to go step one, do this, step two, do this. If your timing is off, if you're not motivating your horse, if you're not communicating consistently, then you you will be you will struggle to get where you need to be. And that's why these three pillars are important. So Randy's got value, Julie, Toby, great. That's good to see that you're all getting value from this. So the third pillar is connection, and that is the behavior. We either have it or we don't. But my question to you is then, are we listening to our horse? What is your horse trying to tell you in the behavior that he's giving you? So is your horse paying attention to you, or is he calling out to his buddies? You'll know if you have connection based on the behavior your horse gives you. But most people have no idea what kind of behavior they should expect from the relationship with their horse. So if a stranger walked up to you, and just using this as an example, if a stranger walked up to you and stepped on your toes or stood straight on with your body within an inch of you, would you just let them do it? So let's say a stranger walks up, steps on your toes. Go into the comments if you would, and let me know if you'd be okay with that, or no way. Would you be okay? And I'm sure it probably depends on the stranger, handsome looking man. So, um, but let me know in the comments if you'd be okay with just any old stranger. No way, not at all. I'm seeing that. Nope, 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 nope. Right. Okay. So we already have this expectation that somebody comes on, steps on our toes, or gets within an inch of our face, we're probably going to shove them away, right? And yet, how many times I've seen horses stepping into somebody's space and we aren't correcting them. We are not identifying our boundaries and saying that's not acceptable. So many of us are doing stuff like that all the time, and we don't even realize that. And we're letting our horses get away with things because our expectations are too low, because we simply don't know what kind of behavior is acceptable. And we have this way of saying, well, it's a fuzzy horse animal, so cute, I just want to hug on it. But they're 1,200 pounds. So essentially, whether it's intentional or not, you're not listening to your horse, and your horse knows it. So if you're terrible at boundaries with people in your life, like the ones that come and step on your toes and step in front of you, this one might be difficult for you, right? But if you're the person that's going to push someone away and say no, you might do okay if you start thinking in line in terms of, my horses have boundaries too, and I have expectations for what my horse should be able to do. Every ask you make of your horse, you should have a goal in mind, or an expectation of what that reasonable behavior is. So, and what do I mean? I mean this first. it would be unreasonable for me to expect that I could get a horse circling around me at liberty without having taught it the smaller skills that lead up to that exercise, right? It just would be unreasonable. I'd be asking too much from my horse. And it's just, it's unreasonable to expect my horse to understand what I want at that point. I need to teach them little things, just like it would be unacceptable and unreasonable for me to take a first grader who is still learning how to do the alphabet and learning words and phonics to have them write an essay or to read an essay, right? But I see it all the time that people think that we have to break things down in those smaller pieces. So if if I was asking my horse to bend at the rib cage and softly move away laterally without walking forward, and I had already worked on smaller skills to get to that point, so I've taught my horse how to bend, how to laterally do it, and then I'm asking them to do it, it's reasonable for me to expect that my horse should give me this response, right? That I know that I want them to move out laterally, which is very, very important in that liberty circle. If I want a bigger liberty circle, I don't want their first response just to go forward or go faster. I want them to move out laterally. So I have to teach them this. I have to teach them long before we get to the liberty circle. And that's why I don't want them going forward. And if my horse goes forward, I know that this is black or white behavior that I have an expectation. My horse did not deliver based on my goal for that exercise, what they should have done, what I knew was reasonable to ask. And so therefore, I will have to either keep asking or I may have to correct. If my horse walks forward, I'm going to back them up and correct them. And so again, antecedent is my ask. That's the communication. The behavior is the horse responding in the way I want them to respond. And then there has to be some sort of consequence. What's happening in that? So it boils down to having goals and establishing clear boundaries with our horses of what we want. And I know some of you, it can be hard because you don't know what to expect from your horse because you don't know what's important when it comes to that liberty circle. But a lack of clarity in your boundaries to begin with is going to lead to inconsistent behaviors from your horse, and it's going to lead to a lack of understanding for your horse of what is expected from you. So even if you knew the techniques, step one is this, step two is this, if you don't understand this concept, you are going to have a hard time. You won't have the type of connection we're talking about where your horse willingly stays with you at liberty, not just following you around, but where you can ask your horse to do certain maneuvers and your horse does it like a dance. So, but it goes beyond listening to your horse. It's also about determining why your horse isn't doing what you've asked. You have to get really good at evaluating the situation. If your horse is walking forward instead of moving away laterally, ask yourself why. Is your horse tense and worried about something? Does your horse respect you when you ask for something? Does your horse understand what you want? Is your horse motivated enough to do what you want? Always go back and look at the root cause with your horse by listening to what your horse is saying. You have to be a problem solver and try to figure out why your horse. So ask yourself those questions. Is it motivation? Is it lack of clarity in your communication? So are you not sequencing your cues? Are you not consistent? Uh, Video yourself and go back and watch yourself and say, was I consistent in my body language at each and every time I asked my horse to draw up to my shoulder, for example? And if your horse has shown you previously that he understands a particular exercise, and maybe now just doesn't do it, he's choosing not to do it. So then I can say, okay, this is a different problem. He's probably not, he doesn't respect you and he's not motivated. He's not motivated enough to do it, right? So then that tells me if that's the problem, then I have to go back to the motivation pillar and figure out what I need to do to fix that, right? And then I have to go back to the communication pillar and figure out how do I build that relationship to make sure that the horse is respecting me and trusting me. But let's say your horse is learning a maneuver for the first time instead, such as moving laterally with a slight bend in the rib cage, and your horse walks forward. So I'm using that same example, but your horse has never done this before. Well, then your horse isn't understanding. And if this is the first couple of times of asking your horse to do this maneuver, it's reasonable to think that your horse isn't necessarily going to understand it right away, right? We know that. We know that they're not going to necessarily understand it. So I'm going to keep asking until they find the right answer. But after a few times, you might have to go back and reevaluate your communication, making sure your communication is clear with what you want. Okay, making sure that your body language, I see this all too often where the body language, nobody thinks about their body language. Nobody thinks about how am I stepping forward? How am I moving my body? How am I shifting? So, so for example, if my horse does continue to walk forward when I'm asking for that lateral movement and he hasn't done the exercise, okay, I'm just going to have to get clearer in my communication by first making sure that I'm asking in the same way every time and that all of my tools are communicating the same message. So then I'm going to have to show my horse what I want. So I might have to show my horse, and maybe that's by manipulating him, holding the halter, and not letting him walk forward. And in general, I will only use that technique with a horse that is first learning, right? Because when you're at liberty, you can't do that. So once they know something, this technique is less effective. But manipulation, which is an operant conditioning technique, is can be effective in other ways to show a horse what we want, because that's really what operant conditioning techniques are. So, or I might use another example to show the horse what I want by giving him a slight correction. Um, Such as if he steps forward, backing him up and without any delay, just going back into asking for the lateral movement. So, I mean, so you see how this goes is, if I delay in asking for the desired exercise, I'm essentially rewarding him and telling him he did something right. So I want to go right back into it if I'm going to use a correction like that. I don't want to stop and pause if I can help it um, in those instances. Uh, so listening to what my horse is telling me, I can really evaluate how I need to respond, and I need to be a problem solver. So if there's something specific that you want to know, drop it in the comments. Let me know what you're looking to learn. I have answers, but I'd love to know what you're looking for. I'm just going to take a quick drink here. But drop in any questions you want. I'll answer them here. The really cool thing is that if you plug into this blueprint for training, it's scientifically proven. And you can maybe get the results you're looking for in just a few weeks rather than a couple years from now. And that's huge. And I know of some people who say they want to do liberty with their horse. And I've known some people that say, I want to do liberty with my horse. And I've known these people for a couple of years, but they're not progressing and they're not getting there, and their horses aren't getting any younger, right? I can really help fast track that and help you get so that you can start doing all the fun stuff that you've always dreamed of doing with your horse, and help you communicate in the language that your horse understands in just 2 months or even 3 months rather than 1 or 2 years, right? And that's the power of learning these strategies quickly rather than just picking and choosing free trainings or watching videos from online libraries that don't really seem to tell you all the information you need to teach your horse. And that's what we can talk about. So we've actually covered quite a bit. So let's see. Toby, if your horse doesn't want to get in the trailer, do you think it's that they're not feeling safe? Yes, absolutely. If your horse does not want, and I know we've talked about this before, if your horse does not want to get into the trailer, it's because safety is a concern. So there's a couple of different ways to really help your horse feel safe with that. And and we can certainly have some more conversations. I can reach out to you, but There's what's called counter conditioning. I know we've talked a little bit about that. Counter conditioning with, having your horse when they're in the trailer, if you get them in the trailer or get them to the edge of the trailer, just sit there and eat. Feed them at the trailer at that point every single day so that they feel comfortable. You can do that in large arenas as well. We've talked about target training as an option too, and teaching your horse to target, because that is, going to be a motivator for them to get into the trailer and help them get past some of that. Um, so I can reach out to you, Toby, and we can, see and kind of help you with that. Another motivator that might help is moving your horse away from it, letting them rest, such as you would with mark training. So again, another motivator. So when they rest at the trailer, they find the reward of being in the trailer, and then they start to crave and want to be in the trailer. Um, so we have lay down. So the question with the lay down, I'm not exactly sure if you're looking at how to do the lay down from start. Is that kind of what you're thinking here? So the lay down is to do it in the most natural way possible here with a horse. We want our horses, we first of all, we want to watch the way that they naturally lay down. So if you look at a horse in the pasture when they lay down, they drop their heads first, they bring their back legs in, front legs come up and or come in and up. And so they almost get to that circus elephant position. They go down on their front knees, and then they flop their hip over and they go down, right? Some horses flop more than others. I say that because that's the way Dalton goes down. He really does a big flop with it, and it's kind of funny, but that is the most natural way to do that. And then to teach with that, you have to add cues to each one of those that you fade away over time to just one cue. And so you want to teach it in that order, teach them to put their head down. And then while they're holding their own head down, teaching them to bring their legs, both of their legs in, each one individually. So, and if they bring the head up, the client I was working with just before this is, we're working on the lay down. And if they bring the head up, you've got to go back to asking for the head down, because the head has to be down, then the legs, but you have to put that into smaller approximations. So, that way, that you are not trying to teach all that at once. That is a multi-day process. I'm going to just teach the head down till I get that consistently. I need to get the head down consistently before I can get the back legs in consistently. And I only work one leg at a time, the one closest to me, with the head down first. And once I can get that one to come in and hold with the head down and reward that, then I'll start on the other back leg. So that's how that works. So, Toby, do you think time limit for trailer training would help? Maybe I spend too long trying in each session. Um, it just depends. Like, I don't really know how long you're spending, but it also depends on what you're doing, right? So there's quality and then there's quality of time. And if we're working our horse, making sure that our communication is consistent, we're using our tools to motivate our horse. So communication can be the operant conditioning techniques, such as using target training, using negative reinforcement, those kinds of things. Or and then as long as our communication is solid and we're using whatever behavior we have, that we're putting a consequence, whether it's, okay, if you don't stop and look at the trailer, if I break it down into an approximation, if you don't stop and look at the trailer, I'm going to move your feet. And then that's a consequence, right? That is a consequence, a correction to try to make the trailer the sweet spot. But I'm not going to up my energy because a horse that's already afraid of it. I mean, unless the horse doesn't want to move out, I have to read the horse, but I'm not going to up my energy. I'm going to keep my energy relaxed and calm, because I want the horse to believe that that is the best place to be. If I get that way and I get that the horse starts craving to go to the trailer and stand at the trailer, then the next thing I'm going to ask for another approximation of, I'm going to ask you to make an effort to step forward and actually take your front legs and touch the trailer. I don't know if you have a ramp or if you have to step up. So that's, that's also another thing too that can make a big difference in some of that. But I'm going to ask for each approximation. And then if the horse doesn't do it, we're going to go, there's a consequence. We're going to go back to work. But if you do it, then you get to stop and get rest and then to give a treat reward. So you do have a step up. Okay. So, which is what I teach my horses on. I teach them all because I have Mustangs and you can't have a ramp with, when you pick up Mustangs. Um, so it's no different than mark training. And then, but again, I'm going to reward the horse when they get to that point. So Toby, I can reach out to you and we can talk about this a little bit more too, and have some more conversations with this. But so I have some thoughts. But so I mean, we've really covered a lot here, and my throat's getting a little sore and dry and hurts a little bit. So, but if you want to learn more, about what I've talked about today, comment below. In the comments, I have a streamlined process, and so if it's not a match to work with me directly right now, I don't push. Okay. It's a very streamlined process of value given on the front end because I want you to succeed. So I give you this value because it's important for me to see people succeeding with their horses. So we're going to wrap it up here, but comment 6 again. Again, I'm going to go back to that. If you're watching this later, you're watching it now. If you haven't commented yet, comment 6 if you want to know the 6 operant techniques that you can use in your communication to help your horses learn. And then these are what I call the tools in the toolbox. So, or you can go ahead and comment the word audit. And if you want a Liberty audit for you and your horse, where you can submit a short video to me of an interaction with you and your horse. And it doesn't even have to be at Liberty. It can be trying to get your horse in the trailer, as Toby's trying to do. So you can go ahead and submit a short video for me, and I can critique that video in a free audit for you. I can give you that feedback, tell you what steps you need to take to get started in your Liberty training, if you want, or if it's, Toby, in your instance, if it's about getting your horse in the trailer, this is a great opportunity for you. I can tell you what I see and what I think you need to do differently because those blind spots, right? So, if there's any other questions in the comments, I'm going to wrap it up for now. But if you think about any questions, go ahead and put them in there, and I'll just reach out to you individually and get your questions answered. Any other questions that happen to come up, or if it pops up after this. So, I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate you hanging in with me today and listening in. But I got to run for now. But we'll see you guys and have a good night.